Frank, we just finished the meal here at Milo's in Piccadilly Circus. Firstly, BT deal, tell us more.
Well, we've extended our deal by a further 3 years, so we're all absolutely delighted. It's been a great partnership since we started off them, over 4 years ago. We've gone from strength to strength, and I think this is it shows that how all what we've done and working together, how everybody's been so pleased with the results that we move on now to yet another era.
Point out a couple of the highlights of the relationship so far.
I mean, obviously, it culminates in Tyson's fight at Wembley. I can remember over 4 years ago when, well, more than 4 or 5 years ago when we went into BT. I already had a deal with him, and I took Tyson in, 11 stone over the weight he's fighting weight, and got them on board. And we went. It was quite a surreal meeting. I was thinking all these executives normally sit down with the Champions League people and the Premiership and cricketing governing bodies and all the various other sporting governing bodies. And there's Tyson, myself, his lawyer, his mate Matthew, all in there, and it was unbelievable. But they'd have already bought into Queensberry, and they bought into our judgment, and that culminated in what happened a few weeks ago at Wembley, which was a massive success story for BT, Queensberry, Tyson, more importantly, and British Boxing.
Speaking of that, now the dust has settled on the Fury Whyte show, what were your thoughts on the promotion?
I thought it was a great promotion. I thought what we did as far as an event was concerned, we done it really well. Bearing in mind that we were, from the day we announced the fight, we had no cooperation from Dillian Whyte. He didn't get engaged or help in any of the promotion. It basically meant that we had to sit down as a promoter and think how we're going to market this. And I sat with Tyson, and we worked out what the plan was. And obviously, people, which I always felt would be buying into the Tyson Fury story, in as much that here's a guy who's been out of the country for nearly 4 years, and gone to the States and had these three magnificent different types of fights with Deontay Wilder, and they were all waiting for him to come back here and fight over in his home country. And that's how it turned out to be. We had the press conference, it sold out. It sold 85,000 tickets in 2.5 hours, massive applications for tickets. And we managed to get the local authorities to agree to increase the capacity to 94,000, which we sold as we announced the additional tickets. And they got behind him, and that was the proof of the pudding. Was when he got into the ring, when he walked into that ring. I think that 94,000 or at least 93,000 people were behind him, and acknowledged that he was the best heavyweight of his generation, and he was British, and they got behind their man.
One negative I think you mentioned to me about the fight was the judging, the Mexican judges' scores.
Yeah, that's sort of been overlooked a bit, and it's a bit ironic considering how much I was looking for foreign officials after that sort of debatable decision or debatable judging that took place in the Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall fight. But then we got a Mexican judge came in and going into the fourth round had Tyson behind. What was he on? I mean, he didn't lose a round, Tyson.
And going back to Tyson, I mean, it's been a great journey the last few years. I mean, what a comeback!
Oh, it's been magnificent. This guy's, is the epitome of the British bulldog spirit. Here's a guy that won a world title, went to Germany, beat Klitschko, the best heavyweight of his generation. Total boxing display. It wasn't like the fights with Wilder or any of those fights. He went out there and just, absolutely took him apart in his own backyard, which was a feat in himself, getting the decision. But he did it emphatically and got the decision. And then, as is well documented, went off the rounds. He had all sorts of drink, drug, mental problems, suicidal, was on his depths of despair, and suddenly turned his life around, got into the gym again, decided that he wanted to fight and felt that boxing would be his focus to get him in, to get him out of where he was at, and so it worked. Losing 11 stone in weight, it's like losing Ricky Hatton plus in weight, and the rest is history. Went off and conquered America, and then came back here for the first time ever and defended his title, his world heavyweight title, having fought abroad. Won it abroad, went to the States, won it back in America, defended it in America, and came back in and defended it the first time. He's an amazing man. He's the best heavyweight of his generation, and I've got to tell you something. And I've been involved with some great British fighters. For me, he's the best of all of them.
And then, obviously, you're getting asked this question a lot at the moment. What are your thoughts on his return?
That's his choice. If he wants to retire, he'll retire. He's paid his dues. If he feels that his heart's no longer in boxing, then he shouldn't be in boxing. It's a dangerous place to be, boxing, getting in the ring, if your heart's not in it. If he's, if that's how he feels at the moment, that's how he feels, and let the dust settle and see how he feels next month. He told me last week he'd gone back in the gym for the first time. Who knows, when he's in the gym, he may get the flavour back. He may feel there's other challenges for him and other things to accomplish. What I wouldn't like him to do, though, is if he does retire, and I don't think he's at his peak. I'd hate him to retire now and then come back, say, in 2-3 years' time, when this is his best, he's at his best. If he's going to retire. But if he's going to fight on, because I think he's head and shoulders above all these guys by far.
Sticking with the heavyweights, Daniel Dubois, obviously the purse bid was won by Don King. Is there any more news on this fight with Trevor Bryan?
Well, it's all good to go. I mean, it's on in June 11th, it's on, and Don King has wrote to us last week. They sent us a message last week asking for names to the press conference. So we're all fingers crossed hoping it'll go on. He's put his deposit in for the fight to happen. If the fight doesn't happen, he'll lose his deposit. So he says it's going to happen. So that's how it is. It's been very frustrating for Daniel, and not as much as far as how he must feel, but it's frustrating for us because we want to keep him busy. He got that fracture, a terrible fracture in his eye against Joyce. Had to have some time out. Came back with a good win, and we couldn't capitalise on it. We got him in a #1 spot. He fought for the #1 guy, and unfortunately, as I say, we've not been able to capitalise on that. But we've had to stay with this fight with Bryan, because if he was to take another fight, they would have stepped aside, moved him out of the way. So we've kept there. He's kept the faith, and now he's got to go out there and do the business, and I believe he can. And then he puts himself in the #1 spot for the WBA, which is very valuable and makes him a significant player in the heavyweight division, which is as it should be. We'll do a show over here as well. We've got a very competitive show. It'll probably be the undercard of plus fights of the fight that we were going to do at Derby County with Zach Parker and Demetrius Andrade. Unfortunately, Andrade's pulled out of an injury. We can't go back to Derby because it's a football brand, as we all know. We was doing extremely well. I think we've done nearly 17,000 tickets. Because time it takes for, once we know where we are at Andrade, because he hasn't sent us any medicals through yet, but once we know where he is, it's going to be too late to put it back on in a football stadium again, because obviously they'll have to be laying their pitches and preparing themselves for next season. So when it's all ready to go, we'll look to the Midlands and find a venue in the Midlands and do the fight there, because it's a great fight, and I think it's a winnable fight for Zach.
And then pivoting across to another Parker, Joe Parker. We mentioned with Joe Joyce. Is there an update on that one, please, Frank?
Well, we're quite close to getting this done, and we just wait for the contracts to come back. They're no ordinary Joes. They're two very good fighters, and I think that Joe Parker's shown what he's all about. He's beaten some good British fighters, Hughie Fury. He's had those good fights against Chisora and so forth, and won them. We know he's a competitor. We know he comes to fight. He's a former world champion, and we know that Joe is undefeated. So this has got all the hallmarks of a really classic fight, and that's how I expect it to be. Styles make fights. Joe's relentless style, walking forward. He takes a shot now and then to land his own, but you know it's going to be something a little bit special.
Well, we look forward to hearing that one. One fight we did announce this week was the York Hall 20th of May show with Brad Foster headlining against Baluta, with Andrew Kane also in there defending his WBC international belt against durable Mexican Luis Moreno. That's a show you must be looking forward to. It's good to get that one back on. That had to be moved from the week after Fury Whyte.
Yeah, we lost the main event there through was it novariasis? Was it Nova? What do they call it? Well, yeah, he was well.
However you want to say it.
Yeah. Anyway, he was ill, and anyway, we got it back on. It's a great show, and I'm looking forward to seeing Brad back in there. He's a great competitor. He comes to fight, and it's a tough fight. It's not an easy fight. He's got a good fight there, and obviously, our man, Mr. Kane, he showed what he was all about, didn't he? I mean, that was a phenomenal knockout that he had. He knocks a guy out. I think his last 12 fights only had lost one and never been stopped before, and he blasted him out in style. So he's going to be looking to impress again. So I think we've got a good show on there.
And his opponent went the distance with McCann just over a year ago.
Yeah, well, he's got to go and he's got to show that he can do what Dennis didn't do.
Exactly, and also on the card, just for the fans watching, we have two of the Franken brothers, Raven Chapman and Sean Noakes. Sam Noakes' brother, older brother, makes his debut.
Making his debut, so I'm looking forward to that. It's a good show. I mean, it's a really competitive little night's boxing. It's all our youngsters, and tune in and watch it. I think you're going to be really well entertained.
Well, thank you very much for the catch-up, Frank. Hope you enjoyed your lunch.
I did. I want to get back to it. I want to have my dessert now and have a glass of wine, and I'll be a happy camper.
Well, enjoy. See you soon.